Thanks for checking out this horror debate series video. So if you're not familiar with this yet, if you haven't seen a bunch of these that your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete and I have been doing, what you do, you finish watching my video, you go watch his video, or maybe you've already watched his video, and then once those are done, you can come back to my page, go to the community tab, and vote on who you thought had the best arguments for what they chose. Or there's also a tie option if you want to do that. If you don't want to vote, that's also fine, but it's always an option. I know there are a lot of people who love to vote in polls. I think it's fun personally, but yeah. It's just, friendly competition thing between Uncle Pete and I. So anyway, his channel is linked in the description, so please make sure you check that out. Also, I'm going to say this at the top because I usually say it at the end. Please subscribe to both our channels, and please hit the notification bell button so you'll know when we're putting up new videos. We both put a lot of work into this. We have a passion for horror, and if you like any of the content we've put out, which is a lot, I feel like it's worth just subscribing because it doesn't cost you anything. So please do that. So let's move on to this topic, the best PG-13 movie. So I pored over it. I had a few options, and keep in mind that PG-13 didn't actually become a rating until in the 80s. I believe the movie that prompted it to happen was Gremlins, Joe Dante's Gremlins. Not 100%, but I think I'm right about that. Someone can fact check me down there. My choice for the best PG-13 movie is The Ring, the one from 2002, the remake. The reason for that being many things. First off, it's a very original story, especially for when it came out. Now, not original in the sense that it was a remake of the Japanese film Ringu, but original in the sense that that story was original. And so when an American audience was seeing it in the form of the remake, it was very original. Ringu was a very good movie. The Ring, I think, was... It made it a lot easier for that story to reach people, not just because it, reached a large audience with English speaking being English speaking in the film, but also it had a much bigger production value and it was much more widely distributed. And yeah, so I do think the concept, once you see it, if you've seen that and you haven't seen Ringu and you just see The Ring straight up, very original, especially for its time, very scary, if you will. And being a PG-13 and legit being scary, I showed this movie to my older sister after I had initially seen it many years ago, which I think was when it first came out into video stores. I had rented it from Blockbuster. Shows you how old that is. 2002, still Blockbuster's kicking around. I showed that to her, and she was freaked out. She was like, I hate you so much for showing this to me. It is legit so scary, and I feel like she's been kind of chasing that scare factor ever since seeing that. We will have conversations about scary horror movies, and she always talks about seeing the 2002 Ring remake. So, I mean, that's one person, but I'm making an argument for why it's the best PG-13. My next point is the odd clips on that Notorious video, super creepy. They did such an amazing job of taking that video that once you watch it, you have, I believe it was 7 days to live before Samara, the long black-haired, very freaky looking girl, comes after you through a television typically to kill you. The clips that you see, they're so nonsensical, they're so weird, and they're put together in such a creepy, weird fashion. Like, all those things independently wouldn't work. You just have like a clip of this, a clip of this, a clip of this. But when you mash them all together, and it doesn't make sense, and you even have the static from nothing being on the TV going along with it, it's this moment of just, what am I seeing and why is this freaking me out? It has that horror gravitas to it, and I love how they put that together. I think it works extremely well. The performances obviously are top-notch in this one, the biggest one being Naomi Watts. Naomi Watts, I think, carries this movie for the most part, although all the acting is good. I think that the focus on her is really good, especially because she does such an excellent job. So, great acting, that contributes to it being a wonderful film. Gore Verbinski creates an amazingly creepy atmosphere and maintains it in masterful fashion. I would be hard-pressed to think of a person who I've talked to in my life about the 2002 Ring, and they said that they didn't find it creepy or scary to any degree. Now, I know there are going to be those people out there who are just like, I've seen pretty much everything in horror, so like nothing affects me. But, we're special people in that instance. I wasn't that person in 2002. I am that person today. But I can still look back and say, this is very scary, this is very creepy. And if I were to watch it today, I'm pretty sure I would still end up feeling that. Another movie that actually does that for me is The Haunting in Connecticut, which I do not think is a good movie, but I think they did a wonderful job of making it scary and having great atmosphere to it. The story is just not great, but with The Ring, it's a very compelling, interesting story that is investigative too. The investigative aspect of it really keeps your interest while also giving you just this really disturbing, creepy atmosphere that, like I said, is executed extremely well by Gore Verbinski. The look, it's so dark. And this was before it was becoming a big thing in horror films to like really leech the palette. It's got, I think, kind of like this blue hue to it a lot of the times, and it's just like it's got a very particular look to it, and I think it works extremely well. My next point is it creates an iconic villain that inspired many to come afterwards. Samara, the black long-haired woman, after she appeared in The Ring, she was so well costumed, she was so well written and executed in the acting that people were chasing that. People were like, how can we also have a character like this? And it's been riffed off of so many times in comedic ways, but also in serious ways in other movies, in Japan and in the United States and all over the place, honestly. I mean, I just watched a movie recently. I'm not going to say which one it is in case you end up seeing the review and you don't want to know that. It's because it hasn't come out when I'm doing this. It reminded me a lot of The Ring. I was like, this movie is very much has to be inspired by The Ring. So its influence runs so deep because it was at that moment a very cultural thing that was going on. I remember so many people watching it and talking about it, which leads me to my last point about this. The amount of people who got phone calls after this movie and got freaked out was so high. And that actually speaks to how effective it is. That speaks to the fact that you were so immersed in this world that was created in front of you on the screen that when something kind of related to it happens in real life, you're just like, oh my gosh. Like, you can't just snap out of it. You were so into it and so sucked into the environment that was created that it's hard to just like come out of it. It is a movie that kind of sticks with you because of the way that it's created and the storyline that's going on, and at the time how unique it was. I will say I was one of those people who got a phone call like immediately after watching it. I think the end credits were still running. It wasn't even a minute after I finished the movie and someone called me, and that it freaks you out because it's a weird coincidence in those instances, and you're just like, oh my gosh. Especially, like I said, like coming right off of watching the movie and just having been immersed in that world. I know there are a lot of people who will watch movies and they don't like fully immerse themselves. They do feel kind of like distant from it, but for me, it's the best if you actually allow yourself to really be immersed in it. And sometimes that includes, turning the lights off and also putting headphones on. I know, shout out to the movie Detective, who always says that. I think his slogan is every horror movie is made to be watched with headphones on in the dark at 3 a.m. So yeah, I mean, I kind of have to agree with it if you want the optimal experience. And The Ring will freak you out in that instance. So these are all my reasons why I think The Ring from 2002 is the best PG-13 horror movie ever made at this point. There could be other ones that come up, or there may be ones that I just have not seen yet. And this is where I'd like to hear from you. Let me know. What did you think about my thoughts on The Ring being my pick for this? Also, what would your personal pick be for this? Now, you can go ahead and put the comment down there. Make sure you also comment on Uncle Pete's as well, because I know he loves reading comments. And if you want to comment on both of ours and you have very similar things to say, that's fine. You can just kind of copy and paste and, put it over there, put it over here. That's totally fine. We are good with that. But thank you everyone for getting involved with this. Really do appreciate it. I do want to make, ask once again, please consider subscribing to both of our channels if you have not. Also, it's fun to vote in this. If you want to do that, hit those notification bell buttons. And thank you so much for watching these. Until next time, keep it brutal.